You know what zombies are missing? Flowers. They don't have enough flowers. How frightening would it be that if you turned into a zombie, you just sprouted pretty flowers? Yes, this story is written and drawn by females. The sad part is, they're grown women, not 8-year-old little girls. And yes, this is a Black Mask book. Black Mask, the sci-fi network of comics. They've never met an idiotic premise they didn't waste the absolute minimum amount of money and talent on. Oh, where to begin? Normally I don't read reviews of comics before I do my own. I want to come in fresh, but I had to know what other people thought about this book because it is pretty bad. Let me give you a taste of what I found. From Comicosity, quote, "The Wilds gives readers something completely different. It's an original story that brings readers into an apocalyptic world of bright colors, blooming flowers, and mysterious abominations." We've got Graphic Policy, quote, "The first issue is a good one diving into a familiar genre, but delivering something that feels new and different." We've got Spartan Town, quote, "The Wilds is a post-apocalyptic comic unlike any other. It's driven by fully realized characters whose motivations are explored amid a world filled with danger." But my favorite comes from Comic Crusaders. You know the book is going to be good when this is the pitch. Quote, "You can tell you are reading a book by new talents because there is a rawness to the story and the art that speaks of vibrancy." Keep in mind, this is the art they're talking about. Look at that. Look at it. Look at that art and tell me that the first words that pop into your head are rawness and vibrancy. Tell that lie. These people have on 4 sets of rose-colored glasses because this book is all sorts of bad. Let me show you. Here's a synopsis from Black Mask, and keep in mind, all these folks applauded this story as original. Quote, "After a cataclysmic plague sweeps across America, survivors come together to form city-state-like communities for safety." We've never seen that before. Never. Never happened. Daisy is a runner for the compound, a mix of post-apocalyptic postal service and black market salvaging operation. Totally original. It's a runner's job to ferry items and people between settlements, and on occasion, scavenge through the ruins of the old world. Totally original. Daisy is the best there is at what she does. Really? She's the best? Oh, so original. Out beyond the settlement walls are innumerable dangers, feral animals, crumbling structures, and abominations. Those that were touched by the plague and became something other. That's never happened before. After a decade of surviving, Daisy isn't fazed by any of it until her lover, how much you want to bet? How much you want to bet her lover is all vajazzled? How much you want to bet? In a world where the human race is dying off from apocalyptic plague, how much you want to bet that there's enough lesbians still around for them to find each other in a world where people live in separate settlements hundreds of miles away from each other? You'd just be tripping over so many women ready to clam slam. That would actually be a thing. There'd be clam slamathons. It'd be like prison but with vagina and flower zombies. Of course the fucking lover is a woman. Why? Because the writer Vita Ayala is a lesbian. So of course the main character would be a lesbian, who's also black, just like the writer. Let's continue. Quote, "Until her lover, another runner named Heather, goes missing on a job. Desperate to find her, Daisy begins to see that there may be little difference between the world inside the walls and the horrors beyond." It's so original. It's like Ayala watched As Good As It Gets, heard Melvin's line about taking away all reason and accountability, and decided to do that with the video game The Last of Us. That's what this story feels like Ayala took away everything that made that game great, and what we're left with is a bland story with subpar art. And the best part is Black Mask spoils the story because Heather isn't missing in the first issue. The first issue is just a setup. So you've literally given away a major plot point before it's shown in the story. It's a synopsis, not a fucking movie trailer. So I'm gonna reverse this and start with the story because the art needs special attention. Ayala is an okay writer. She's not great, she's not terrible, she's just okay, and you get that right from the beginning. She borrows from a lot of other stories, which is fine, but it never gets into its own thing. I found myself constantly thinking about where I'd seen this concept before and how it had been done better. That's never a good thing. The premise of the story is simple. Some virus or something unexplained caused people to turn into flower zombies. First they get flu-like symptoms, then they become violent, and then all hell breaks loose. This virus or whatever also causes plants to overtake cities. Look at those vines overtaking that completely empty city block. Then we get this spiel about how important runners are to these compounds people live in. This is where we meet up with Daisy and Hank. And I'll just read the opening scene just so you can get a taste of the eloquent writing in this book. Bacon's fresh. We just slaughtered a few pigs, mostly for trade. Lucky me. I'll settle up with Eileen when I go. We both know that's not happening. Hank. It's a gift, Daisy. Relax. You'll shit it out before you even make it back, and they'll never know. Charming. What Black Mask story would be complete without a little forced swearing right at the beginning? Look at that edgy dialogue. You can cut it with ether is so sharp. What happens to everybody who publishes through Black Mask? It's like they're children who met adults who let them curse. You don't have to swear all the time. So the whole conversation between Daisy and Hank is about getting Daisy to quit being a runner. She doesn't want to quit because Hank saved her life and she feels like she has to help the compound to basically pay it forward. Hank is against this because the compound uses runners to do all the dirty work while everyone in the compound remains relatively safe. There's nothing wrong with this, except this is usually a premise in these kinds of post-apocalyptic stories. Yeah, this is usually what happens to humans when all hell breaks loose, but for something that's supposed to be touted as original and new and different, it really comes across as more of the same. We've got the random catastrophe, the ruined society, the zombies, the hardened survivors, and now the us versus them dichotomy. There's nothing original in this, either in the premise or the execution. The story pretty much unfolds as you'd expect. Daisy happens onto some zombies attacking a guy, saves the guy, plays coy with information about a compound, and then checks in on her mechanic who bitches about the car, and then Daisy goes home to her lover Heather. That last part is the one difference because the lover is a woman. Oh wait, that also happened in The Last of Us, actually a bunch of times. So yeah, another retread, except instead of the little white girl being the lead, it's the black girl and they're both adults and still alive. It's almost like Ayala played The Last of Us Left Behind and went, what if Riley survived and the story was about her being a badass? Again, there's nothing wrong with this, but you've got to push the narrative better than a gratuitous sex scene. Oh yeah, there's lesbian sex. Stiffly drawn, limp dick inducing lesbian sex. It's like the guy who draws the emergency airplane manuals made one for lesbians. I'm just baffled by what's supposed to be happening because there's a lot of missionary position going on, and I'm pretty sure neither of them have a dick. So what the fuck is happening? What are you getting out of this? I'd show you the art, but I can't, partly because I get the video pulled, but mostly because I don't want to bore you. So after their little clam slam, Heather and Daisy argue about Daisy quitting her job, and it is just the most pointless argument because other than telling us that Heather grew up in the desert as a nomad with her family, we've already seen this argument with Daisy and Hank. And to be honest, I'm not invested enough in either of these characters to care that they're having a lover spat. If Daisy had walked into the room and had been like, "Where's my pussy?" I might have been entertained. There's just no passion in the argument or in the scene. We simply don't know enough about these characters or their world to care about this argument, which gets cut off when a runner returns and tells them, They're coming, Daisy. They're coming. And look at all of them. All those zombies. All those horrible flower zombies. Thousands of them. Tens of thousands of them. Right there. I'm not making this page up. This is an actual page in the book. Solid fucking black. But wait, there's more. It's like Magdalene Visaggio jumped in as a writer and decided to add in this pointless tale about the runner fighting some zombies in a house at the end of the fucking story. And it's just... Okay, so let's talk about this art. This book was drawn by Emily Pearson and colored by Marissa Louise. The coloring is bland. It's very muted throughout the book, very flat with little shadows or highlights. There's nothing to make this art pop, and that just makes Emily's work look worse than it already is. I could roast the artwork, but let me be fair and frank. Emily simply isn't ready to draw comics. You can tell she's got some skill and some talent, but you can also tell that she hasn't got a clue what to do when it comes to making comics. It's not her panel layouts that are the problem. It's that she doesn't know how to draw certain things, and it shows. Here's a good example from the first page. The first panel is mostly empty, but it works. You've got this generic looking plant, but it's okay. But when you get to panel 2, the flaws start to show. The flowers are so detailed that they look fake and out of place with the woman lying in the bed. We're meant to understand that this woman is sick with flu-like symptoms, but that's not clear from the picture. There's no real storytelling in that image. Panel 3 gets worse. Clearly, Emily doesn't draw action scenes a lot or very well. I mean, what the hell is happening to this guy? Are they pushing him? Is he leaning or falling? This chick is getting choked at the collarbone. I'm sure it would hurt if someone dug their fingers under the bone, but that's not how you choke someone. And what is up with the woman choking her? Look at her face. It's like she's literally saying, I am going to choke you now. Roar. The internet is your friend. Look up angry faces and draw them. Then we get to panel 4, and what do you say? What do you say? Where are all the cars? If all hell broke loose, there would still be cars and debris everywhere. The scene is empty. Even if you're not going to have cars, why not show how the plants have taken over? What we get are these scribbles that are supposed to be vines growing on part of the building. That's it. Remember, this art is supposed to be rawness and vibrancy. All I see is work by someone who isn't sure what to draw. This doesn't mean Emily should never work on a book, but it does mean she needs to get her skill level up, because this work is unacceptable. Trees have shapes, and none of them are flat. These are Photoshop brushes. I'm not saying you can't use them, but try to fool people and make an effort to make grass look like grass. Then you get to the next panel, and all the perspective is thrown out of the window. The horizon line is somewhere in the middle of the top panel, but all the vanishing points are much lower. You didn't have to eyeball this panel. I get that the vanishing points are probably off the page, but that's what paper and tape are for, or better yet, Manga Studio and Photoshop are for. Fix your line art in the software. It's fine if you make mistakes. We all do it. It's not fine when you print them. Get reference. This is what the internet is for. Go online, find something similar to what you want to draw, copy it, and make adjustments for what you need. Again, you will make mistakes. But there is a reason we have erasers in editing software. What's really bizarre is that Emily doesn't seem to have a problem getting reference. She clearly got it for this car, which she either drew very well or traced every time she drew it. And I think she traced it because when you see the other cars, they don't look so good. Then we come to the pages where I literally gave up. I've been sitting on this book for a month. I didn't come back to it until a couple of days ago because this broke me. First of all, we've got the blandest, unfrightening zombie chase in history. There's nothing about these zombies remotely unnerving. It's like, oh, I'm being chased by mannequins. And the flow of the panels makes no sense. Daisy shoots one of the zombies out of nowhere. She's in the car, then there's a shot. Then we get this panel of her out of the car. That would be fine if they were on the same page. But it's not. It's the first panel of the following page. But you didn't set up that the woman got out the car or even stopped the car. Part of that is on the writer Ayala because some sound effects could have made that clear. But the rest is on the artist for not correcting the problem. Then we get this zombie stabbing that's just flat. There's a thing I've noticed with beginning and unsure artists. I call it side scrolling. What happens is that when an artist doesn't know how to draw something, they either draw it facing forward or in profile. So you can see this in the second panel and with the stabbing panels. Emily doesn't know how to make these shots engaging, so she side scrolls and sucks all the energy out of her drawings. It just looks boring and poorly staged. It doesn't take much to fix these shots. You just need to move the camera and add in a shot of Daisy getting the crowbar. Done. This is where an editor would be helpful, and the book had one, but from everything I've read from Black Mask, the editors do fuck all. The real travesty though, the place where I just gave up, was this page. Just drink in this panel. Drink it in. We've got 3 horizon lines. Count them. 1, 2, 3. Then we've got these trees that are just lines on a page. There's no design to them, no character, just straight up and down, mostly black masses just popped onto the page. We've got the Photoshop leaf bukkake all over the background. What trees look like this? Honestly, where have you seen trees like this? Then we get these people in the fucking road and you don't know what the fuck you're doing, Emily, do you? I'm trying to be constructive, but honestly, how do you not see this is wrong? What road have you ever seen that was big enough for 2 lanes, but small enough for a grown man to damn near touch both sides? On the previous page, the dude was in the middle of the road, with no lane divider, mind you. And now he's big enough to touch both sides. There's no depth to these characters. I mean, literally, there is no depth between them. They're basically all on the same plane until you look at the bottom panel and then see they're actually some distance apart. But that's not the worst of it. The worst of it is that the perspective is completely wrong. The way the guy is drawn makes it look like the horizon should be somewhere around his elbows, but the road clearly has a steeper angle to it, so we should be looking down at the guy and the two zombies, not directly at them. But wait, if you look to the right, you can see the correct horizon line for the characters. There it is, which makes those trees on the left side of the road look like they're on a shelf. It's almost like Emily drew the guy to cover up having to draw the rest of the road, and then forgot where she put the horizon line. That doesn't explain the extra horizon line in the background though. Why is that there? Now, it doesn't appear that this is a mistake because Emily drew the same thing for the bottom panel. Like I said, she's just not ready to draw comics. This is something any editor should have seen and made her fix before any colors got put to the page, let alone the damn thing went to print. What bugs me about this is that all these reviewers saw what I'm seeing and praised the art as if it were drawn by Jorge Jimenez. Are we looking at the same thing? Yes, Emily has potential, but she's clearly not there, not even close. This book was getting 8 and 9s out of 10 for the story and the art, and if you were honest and even generous, the best you could say is 5 out of 10. You can see how it could be better, but that's not how you're supposed to review a book. You're not supposed to pretend you read the better book. You're supposed to review what's in front of you, and what's in front of you is a typical by-the-numbers zombie book but with lesbians, drawn by someone fresh out of high school. I don't know if that's the case with Emily, but her art reminds me of high school artists. It's just not that good. It's not the worst book I've ever read, but it's still pretty bad. When Adventures in Poor Taste, an apt title, says, quote, Black Mask Studios is quickly cementing themselves as a top comic publisher, what books are you reading? What is it with Black Mask publishing subpar art and writing? It's one thing to be open to freelance creators. It's another to constantly and consistently publish work that hasn't been edited, hasn't been read aloud, hasn't been checked for quality assurance. As an indie creator, you should want to put out your best work. You should strive to make your work be as close to the level of the greatest talent out there now. That doesn't mean you're going to reach that level. You probably won't. But here's some honest truth. Reaching for the impossible will make you a better creator. It will push you to try harder. And as a result, you will catch mistakes you otherwise let go. More importantly, it'll get people to take you seriously. You're not just playing around or doing this as a hobby. You really mean it, really want it, and your work will show it. I wish Black Mask would gut check their creators. Let them know when something's just not good enough instead of publishing whatever these people hand in. Because honestly, I don't see Black Mask as a top publisher. I see them as a hack publisher that will publish anything as long as it jives with their politics. But what do I know? I'm just some guy.